Hi everyone, welcome to the Lowen Dress Sewalong video. I'm so excited you're here. I just released the pattern over on Etsy. It is a modular design that features 12 mix and match views and will take you anywhere from brunch with the girls to the best dressed wedding guest of the season. You can choose between two neckline options, round or v-neck, and a sleeveless or puff sleeve option. The pattern also comes with 3 length options, a midi, and a full length with a ruffle tier. And before you ask, the dress does also have pockets. The bodice is shaped with angled French darts for a flattering fit, and the pattern also comes with a detailed adjustment guide for you to get the perfect fit on your body. Since the garment is quite fitted, I highly recommend you sew a toile before cutting into your good fabric. But if you really want to skip that, at least sew the lining first, check how it fits on your body, make any adjustments to the lining and the paper pattern pieces first before cutting into your main fabric. For fabric recommendations, I highly recommend something medium to lightweight with 0 stretch. Cotton, linen, viscose blends, satin are all beautiful options for this pattern. The pattern comes with print at home, copy shop, and projector files with layers enabled so that you can print only the sizes that you need. I've included an instruction booklet with all of these details as well as step-by-step instructions for sewing all 12 views of the Lowen dress. But if you're more of a visual learner, I recommend using this YouTube sew-along as a companion to the instruction booklet. And with that, let's get into it.
We're starting with stay stitching. For both the v-neck and crew neck version of the pattern, we're going to stay stitch the armholes, neckline, and open back of the front and back bodice pieces. Stay stitching is just a line of regular stitching sewn just inside the seam allowance, and the purpose is really to stop things from stretching out as you sew. Trust me, you're not going to want to skip this step. Once you're done stay stitching all your pieces, we're going to sew the darts on the front bodice for both the main and lining. Fold the darts so that the legs line up, pin and sew from the side seam to the dart tip. You can try carving the last centimeter of the dart tip towards the folded edge to avoid a pointy bust dart. Remember not to backstitch at the dart tip. Leave longer thread tails instead so that you can finish it with a hand knot. Then press the dart down towards the waist. You might need to trim the dart hat a little bit so that it blends cleanly into the side seams and the waist seam. Next, we're going to sew the shoulder seams together. Place your front and back bodice pieces right sides together and sew the shoulders with a 1 cm seam allowance. Press your seam open. Now onto the ties. You're going to fold each tie piece in half lengthwise, right sides together. Sew along one of the short ends, pivot, then sew down the long edge using 1/2 cm seam allowance. If your fabric is on the heavier side, you might consider folding the ties into quarters like bias tape and top stitching it instead. Personally, I like to snip off one of the corners of the ties so that I can get a crisp edge when I overturn my tie. To overturn my ties, I'm using a loop turner, but you can also use a needle and thread or a safety pin. Give the ties a good press. Place your main bodice right side facing you. We're going to pin the tie at the back corner of the neckline, making sure that the ties are perpendicular and centered in the opening. Then place the lining bodice on top of the main bodice, right sides facing. We're going to sew this with 1 cm seam allowance. I'm showing you how to do this on the crew neck version of the bodice, but if you're sewing the v-neck, skip ahead to the v-neck section of the video. Clip the corner of your back neckline at a 45-degree angle. Again, this is just so that you have a clean, crisp edge once you overturn your bodice. For the round neck, you're also going to want to clip all around the curved edges of the neckline so that they overturn nicely and you can release the tension. For the v-neck bodice, you're going to repeat the exact same steps. Sew the open back and the neckline with 1 cm seam allowance. Once you get to the V of the neckline, lift your presser foot and pivot your work, then continue sewing. Similar to the crew neck version, clip the corner of the back neckline at a 45-degree angle. You'll also need to snip into the seam allowance of the curved edges of the neckline. Cut into the V of the neckline as close as you can to the stitching without actually cutting through. This will help you get a crisp V once you overturn your bodice. To prevent your lining from peeking out, we're going to understitch the neckline and the open back. Pull the main and lining fabric apart at the open back and fold the seam allowance towards the lining. Then from the right side, stitch that seam allowance down to the lining as close to the original seam as you can. You won't be able to go all the way around in one go, so understitch to the back corner, take your work off the machine, then start again past the corner. Once you've finished, press the neckline and the back opening. If you're sewing the puff sleeve version, we're going to close up the side seams. Match the side seams of the main fabric right sides together and sew with 1 cm seam allowance. Then you repeat the same for the lining side seams. Once you do that, your side seams will be fully enclosed with just the waist seam and the armhole still open. Turn the bodice right side out and give the seams a press again, pressing the main and lining seam allowances in opposite directions to help reduce bulk for the next steps. To prepare the sleeves, use a long stitch length to sew a line of basting stitches between the 3 notches at the sleeve head. Do not backstitch and leave long thread tails so that we can gather the sleeve head later. With right sides together, sew the underarm seam of the sleeve with 1 cm seam allowance. You can finish the raw edges with an overlock machine or a zigzag stitch. Then press the seam allowance towards the back, which is indicated by the double notches. Finish the raw edge of the sleeve hem with an overlocker or a zigzag stitch. Then fold the sleeve hem to the wrong side by 1.5 cm and press. Sew along the sleeve hem with 1 cm seam allowance to create a channel for the elastic, but remember to leave a 4 cm gap to insert the elastic. For the elastic, measure around your bicep near the elbow and cut 2 pieces of elastic to that length plus 2 cm for seam allowance. Attach a safety pin to one end of the elastic and thread it through the channel until it comes out the other side. Overlap the elastic ends by 1 cm and secure them with a zigzag stitch or a straight stitch by going back and forth a few times. Pull on the elastic to tuck it back into the channel and close the gap with a straight stitch. To insert the sleeve into the bodice, place the bodice lining side out. I like to first pin the main and lining together around the armhole to ensure that nothing shifts when I'm inserting the sleeve. Turn your sleeve right side out. Insert the sleeve into the bodice, making sure to match up the sleeve notches with the armhole. The double notches align with the back, the single notch with the front, and the center notch aligns with the shoulder seam. Pull on one of the basting thread tails to gather the sleeve head until it fits into the armhole evenly. You'll want to distribute your gathers closer to the center notch. Pin your gathers in place, then sew the sleeve with 1 cm seam allowance. Repeat for the second sleeve, then finish the raw edge of each armhole with an overlocker or a zigzag stitch. For the sleeveless bodice, overturn your work so that the right sides of the main and the lining are facing each other again. Align and pin the armholes and sew with 1 cm seam allowance. Remember to also clip around the curved edges of the armhole to help release tension when you turn it out. To overturn the bodice right side out, reach into the front waist, through the shoulder, and pull the back waist through the shoulder seam. The next step is optional, but I think it will give you a really clean finish, which is to understitch the armholes. Just like before, you're going to pull the main and lining apart, press the seam allowance towards the lining and sew from one end of the armhole up to the shoulder seam. You're going to have to take it off the machine once you reach the shoulder seam and repeat from the other end. Then give everything a nice press. Finally, let's close up the side seams. Place your bodice with the main side facing you. Separate the main and lining layers and match the front and back side seams, right sides together, and pin from the waist up to the underarm, continuing down the lining. Sew with 1 cm seam allowance, press and repeat on the other side. Finally, we've made it to the skirt construction. Start by sewing the back darts on both the main and lining skirt pieces. Fold the darts so that the legs align, sew from the waist seam to the dart tip, making sure to leave long thread tails again so that you can finish it with a knot. Press each dart towards the side seam. If you're adding pockets to your skirt, start by overlocking or zigzagging the curved edges of all 4 pocket bag pieces separately. Align the pocket bag with the front skirt piece, matching the first and third notches with the pocket bag opening. Make sure that you're placing your pocket bag on the skirt right sides together. Repeat with the remaining 2 pocket bags and the back skirt pieces. Then baste each pocket bag in place with 1/2 cm seam allowance. Once the pocket bags are basted in place, you can overlock or zigzag stitch the raw edge of the skirt's side seams. Fold each pocket bag away from the skirt and understitch the pocket opening. This will keep your pockets from flipping out when you're wearing the dress. Once you've understitched all the pocket bags, place the front and back skirt together, right sides facing. Pin and sew down the side seam around each pocket bag with 1 cm seam allowance. For the lining, place the front and back skirts together, pin the side seams, and sew with 1 cm seam allowance. You can then finish the edges with a zigzag or overlock stitch. If you're skipping pockets, you'll want to repeat this for the main skirt as well. Press the side seams of both the main and lining skirts. I like to press the side seams in opposite directions to reduce the bulk. For example, for the main skirt, I press the side seams to the back, and for the lining skirt, I press the side seams towards the front. We're going to assemble the bodice and the skirt together now. To make sure everything lines up, mark the center of your front bodice and your front skirt with a small notch. You can do this by folding each piece in half at the side seams and snipping a little into the seam allowance. Lay your main skirt right side up, then place your bodice on top with the lining facing you. That means the right sides of the skirt and the bodice are facing each other. Line up the side seams and the center notch and pin in place. You may also find it helpful to baste the skirt to the bodice at this step. Now take your skirt lining and place it on top of everything, right sides together. That means the wrong side of the lining is facing you. Line up the center notches, side seams, and the center back seam. Your bodice will now be fully sandwiched between the main and the lining skirt. Use as many pins as you need to keep everything in place. Sew the waist seam with 1 cm seam allowance. Then finish the raw edge with an overlocker or a zigzag stitch. Understitch the seam allowance to the skirt lining. This helps the lining lay flat when you're wearing the dress and prevents it from peeking out from the open back. Press the waist seam. Since the main and lining skirts are now attached, you can finish the center back seam with an overlocker or a zigzag stitch. We're almost at the finish line. Before inserting the zipper, press the zipper teeth away from the zipper tape to flatten them. This is a trick I use to help me get the most invisible finish on my invisible zipper. Place the zipper face down on the right side of the main skirt. Pin the zipper in place and sew as close to the zipper teeth as possible, stopping just before the zipper notch. If you have an invisible zipper foot, this is a great time to take it out. If you don't have one, a trick that I found is using a regular zipper foot with the needle shifted slightly closer to the zipper teeth. Align the other side of the zipper tape with the opposite side of the back skirt. Make sure that the zipper isn't twisted and that the zipper teeth are still sitting 1.5 centimeters away from the center back. Again, sew the zipper until you reach the zipper notch. Take a moment to check whether you're happy with how the waist seam is lining up at the top before moving on to the next step. Now, line up the rest of the center back seam on the main skirt below the zipper with 1.5 centimeters seam allowance. It might be tricky to sew right up to the zipper stop with your machine, so feel free to hand sew that last bit for a clean finish. Press your center back seam open. Insert the skirt lining into the main skirt so that the right sides of the skirts are touching. Match up the center back edges of the lining and the main fabric with the zipper sandwiched in between. Sew the lining down to your main skirt and the zipper. Try to sew close to the existing stitching for the zipper. Stop sewing when you reach the zipper stop. With right sides together, sew the rest of the center back seam on the lining skirt using 1.5 centimeters seam allowance. Press the center back seam open. This is also a good time to press the lining away from the zipper. Trim 2.5 centimeters off the bottom of the lining skirt so that it is slightly shorter than the main skirt. Then fold and press the raw edge up twice by 1 centimeter and sew with 1 centimeter seam allowance to hem it. If you're sewing the mini or the midi length, fold and press the raw edge of the skirt towards the wrong side twice by 1 centimeter and sew with 1 centimeter seam allowance. If you're sewing the full length dress with ruffles, place the ruffle panels right sides together and sew the side seams with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Finish the raw edges with an overlocker or a zigzag stitch. Then run a single row of basting stitches along the top edge using your longest stitch length. Do not backstitch and leave long thread tails so that we can gather the panels later. I like to sew each panel separately so that I have greater control when gathering the ruffles. Hem the bottom edge of the ruffle by folding it up twice by 1 centimeter and sewing with 1 centimeter seam allowance. To gather the ruffle, gently pull on one of the thread tails until it roughly matches the width of the skirt hem. Right sides together, match up the hem of the skirt with the gathered edge of the ruffle. Sew the ruffle to the skirt with 1 centimeter seam allowance and finish the raw edge with an overlocker or a zigzag stitch.
And that's it, your Lowen dress is all done. I hope you love how it turned out and feel amazing wearing it. I would love to see how your finished Lowen dresses turned out, so please tag me on social media at Sewing with Lilia and use the hashtag Lowen dress. If you found this video helpful or have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for sewing with me today, and I'll see you next time.